So we're going to do my starting point guard rankings for the 2023-2024 NBA season. I know the NBA season's already started, but we're just a few games in, so I still think I still think I can get these videos out, even if we have done a few games of the season already. And I'm going to preface this by saying that these rankings are a projection for this upcoming season. They're not exactly who I think is a better player right now. It's not who had the better season last year. It's who I think will have the better season, better total season by the end of this year. So that's what we're going with. Let's get started. Number 31. So we have 31 because Ja Morant's supposed to miss 25 games. So I did count Marcus Smart in here as well as Ja Morant for a starting point guard. So that's why we have 31 instead of 30. But yeah, number 31, I got Kyle Lowry. He's still a solid player. He's just not obviously not in his prime anymore. So, he didn't have a great season last year. He's just a solid role player at this point. Not much else to say about that. I think he would definitely would be better coming off the bench. But yeah, number 30, we got Jeremy Sohan for the Spurs. I don't know why all these pictures are very blurry, but that's not too big of a deal. But yeah, number 30 for him. He was a power forward or whatever last year, and now he's starting at point guard, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But that's what they got going here. So he's not a bad player. Obviously, he's young. This is only his second season. So I got him better than Kyle Lowry, but not by a lot. I think he's a solid player. Just definitely not a point guard in my eyes. Number 29, you got Kobe White. Kobe White's a good player. He's sometimes inefficient, but again, a solid role player. Not a whole lot to say about that. Number 28, we got Mike Conley. So Mike Conley, I'm gonna predict a little bit of regression from last season, just because obviously he's old, so he's going to be regressing a little bit probably each season. He didn't have a bad season last year, but I'm projecting a worse season this year than last year, for reasons that I just said. But yeah, he's not a bad point guard for sure. I think he would definitely be one of the better bench players if he may be out the bench. Number 27, I got Ben Simmons. So it's kind of hard with Ben Simmons because you don't really know, is he going to be good or is he going to be, is he going to be what Ben Simmons has been the last few seasons? And then there's also the health problems. If he's just actually going to play a lot of games or just going to play not even a quarter of the season. I don't know, but I do think Ben Simmons will play most of the games this year. Not not 80, but probably close to 60 games. For Ben Simmons this season, which is definitely an improvement over recent years. And I think he'll have, because of playing most of the season, I think he'll get himself into more of a rhythm and have a better statistical season than he did last year. Number 26 got Russell Westbrook. This might seem a little bit low. I think he played really really well for the Clippers last season once he signed there, and he did really good in the couple of playoff games he had. But he also did not play a lot of games with Paul George or Kawhi Leonard, so he was, in a lot of those games, he was the main guy there. So I don't expect him to do that, obviously. He's going to have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard holding him back a little bit. And I did make this before the James Harden trade, so I'm not accounting for that in my rankings here, but that obviously will not help Russell Westbrook to get the statistical numbers that he has gotten in recent years, because he has. I'm projecting he's going to be playing with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George a lot more than he did last year, so they're going to take some numbers away. At number 25, we got Tyus Jones. He's a serviceable point guard. Obviously, he was good for the Grizzlies last season when he started for Ja Morant. He did really good replacing him. He's best, one of the best assist to turnover ratio guys in the league. Just a solid point guard. Number 24, got Markel Fultz. I mean, he's a scorer. That's basically all he is. Um, he's solid. Definitely come a long way from his Philly days when he like wasn't even playing and was just very inefficient shooter. He's definitely a lot better shooter now. He's gonna carve out his way as a solid starter in the league for a good chunk of time, I think, which is good to see after we see the lows that he was at early in his career. But I like Marco Fultz. Got him at 24. Number 23 is Dennis Schroeder. He probably had a worse season than Marco Fultz last year, but a part of why I'm putting him this high is because of what he did in FIBA. I know you can't put too much on FIBA because they're not playing against a whole bunch of NBA talent, but I mean, Dennis Schroeder was the FIBA MVP for Germany, who did win gold in the tournament. So I feel like I gotta give him a little bit of credit for doing that. Number 22, I got Marcus Smart. I mean, he's a really good defender, um, and solid. He's decent on offense, but defense is obviously where he strives, and he's going to be starting for John Morant for the first 25 games, and then probably he might be coming off the bench after that, or he might be sliding over to shooting guard. I'm not completely sure what they're going to be doing there, but I think he's a solid player. Number 21, I got D'Angelo Russell. I mean, he's a better offensive player than Marcus Smart for sure. Defense obviously worse than Marcus Smart, but I like what D'Angelo Russell is doing. I think he's a slightly better player than Marcus Smart. Number 20, got Colin Sexton. So, Colin Sexton, he's a scorer. That's basically all he does. But he can get to about 20 points a game. It's just, obviously pretty solid. And he's, still young, so I think he's going to keep progressing from what he was last season. Even though he was pretty solid last season at about 18 points a game. Number 19, we got Scoot Henderson. So obviously he's a rookie. Don't have too much to base this off of, but I just feel like I feel like he's going to have a solid season, but not like anything too crazy because he is a rookie point guard. Rookie point guards don't usually look very good in their first year or two because they usually have a lot of turnover and efficiency problems, which makes sense because they're all rookies. But I think Scoot Henderson will have a solid season this year. Just nothing too special. Number 18, I got CJ McCollum. This feels a little low for CJ McCollum, but I just feel like there is a lot of good point guards on this list above him, so it's not really much of a knock to have him where he is on this list. It's more of, there's just a lot of talent at this position, and I also think he'll have a worse statistical season this year than last season. Part of that being because he is like 34 years old, and I'm projecting Zion Williamson to play a good majority of the season. So obviously, CJ McCollum's at least his scoring numbers would go down because of that. Number 17, I got Chris Paul. Obviously, he's like 38 years old. He's obviously a really good player still, I think. For the Golden State Warriors, he should be coming off the bench this season, so it'll be interesting to see how he does coming off the bench. I still think he's a solid player, and he'll definitely make an impact on this Warriors team. But I have him as a starting point guard right now because that is what ESPN. I based my positions and lineups off of ESPN's projected starting lineups before the NBA season. So this is why Chris Paul is at point guard, and you won't see Stephen Curry on this list because he was listed as a starting shooting guard. But I do think Chris Paul is going to be coming off of the bench the majority of the season. I just wanted to keep all my projections unbiased and go off of what ESPN's roster say. Number 16, I got Fred VanVleet. So obviously he's a great scorer, but very inefficient. He puts up numbers, but he's very inefficient. I think he'll definitely have a better season this year than last year because he's on the Rockets, and I think he's probably the best or second best player on this team. They got probably the third best player. Jalen Green and Al Prince and Goon, I would say, are probably a little better than him, but He's definitely right up there with both of them. I would say he's pretty close. But yeah, he's just a very inefficient guard, but he still puts up numbers. Number 15, we got Cade Cunningham. Obviously he played like 10 games last season. He was injured most of the season, but he had a good rookie season, and he looked really good in the 10 games he played last season. So I project him to, play really, really solid this year as well. Number 14, you got Bradley Beal. I mean, he should take a statistical dip from last year, obviously, because now he's playing with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. But I still think he's a really solid, really efficient scorer in this league. He should still average over 20 points per game easily, even though he has two potentially 30-point per game scorers on his team in Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. But, Bradley Beal is still a really good player. Number 13, I got LaMelo Ball. He obviously played like 38 games last year with his ankle injuries and stuff. I still think he's a really good player when he does play. One of the best passers in the league, has a very good potential to get a lot of triple doubles just because of his play style and stuff. And I think he'll be averaging close to 23 to 25 points per game this season. Yeah. Number 12, we got Drew Holiday. I mean, he's very good on defense. He's pretty solid on offense, too. I just don't know if his statistical numbers this season are going to look too good because, obviously, he is probably the fourth offensive option on this team. So he's not going to be, probably won't be averaging 20 points a game or even 18. He probably might be closer to the 15 points per game when he's been closer to 18 to 20 for most of his career, but still a really solid player. Number 11, we got Darius Garland. He's a young player, should still be improving over last year, so that's why I have him over Holiday. Holiday probably had a better year last year, but I think Garland will progress, continue to progress this season, and have a really solid year. Number 10, I got Trae Young. I mean, he has the real potential to average 30 points and 10 assists a game. So, I don't know. I think he's one of the best, obviously the best offensive players in the league. His defense is, just not good, but he definitely makes up for that with his offensive production. That's what I got. Number 9, we got De'Aaron Fox. So, he also has really really good offensive production like Trae Young, just a little bit worse than Trae Young on offense, but his defense is a lot better than Trae Young. De'Aaron Fox looked really good last year. He looked really, really good in the playoff series against the Warriors. So I expect him to build up off of that postseason performance and have a really good season again this year. Number 8, I got Jamal Murray. A lot of this is based off of his insane postseason run because I do think he had a worse season than a few of these guys he's ranked ahead of last year. It's just that his postseason run is what is going to lift him over them in our rankings here. He's a really good player. Number 7, I got Ja Morant. So obviously he's going to miss 25 games this year. He might be a little bit higher on this list if he was going to play all year, but I wanted to at least show that his suspension is going to hurt him a little bit this year in his rankings because I'd rather have 80 games of someone else over 60 games of Ja Morant. So that's what my thought process is on that. Like here with Jalen Brunson, I think Ja Morant's a better player than Jalen Brunson, but I'd rather have 80 games or at least the potential of 80 games for Jalen Brunson and the potential for, like 55 to 60 games for Ja Morant. That's what I got there. Jalen Brunson had a really good season last year. I expect him to do that again this year. Number 5, I got James Harden. So now he's obviously in the Los Angeles Clippers, not the Sixers, but I think his play style isn't going to change because of that. His statistical numbers, I don't think are going to change much because of that trade. I think he's a really good player. He's a really good scorer. He's a triple-double machine as well. He'll probably get at least 5 to 10 triple-doubles this season, which doesn't seem like too much of a lot in today's NBA, but it's still a really solid amount. Yeah, James Harden is one of the best offensive players in the league still, I would say. Number 4, we got Tyrese Halliburton. He was really good last year, and he looked pretty solid in FIBA ball. And I just think he's going to keep building off of his season last year. I think it will definitely help to get guys like Obi Toppin on his roster with him, because a pick and roll with Miles Turner or something, um, or a lob, like pick and rolls with Miles Turner are working, obviously, but like imagine doing pick and roll with Obi Toppin, or not even a pick and roll, just having the ball at the top of the key and like doing a different down screen in the corner to Obi Toppin, and he just flies to the rim for an alley oop attempt. Tyrese Halliburton is going to be hitting Obi Toppin on those a lot, I feel like. Number 3, we got Damian Lillard. So, obviously he averaged 30 plus points last year, I believe, right? He's, one of the best offensive players, one of the best players in the league in general. I got him at number 3 here. He should score less points per game probably than last season, just because of having a guy like Giannis on his team. And he only played like 30 to 40 games, I believe, last year. But, I expect a mostly healthy season for him, and a little bit of a statistical drop off playing with Giannis, but still a really, really good and a really efficient year this year for Dame. Number 2, we got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I think he's better than Damian Lillard. He averaged 30 plus points per game last season too, and he's definitely a better defender than Damian Lillard. And he's still young, so we could still be getting improvement for sure. I don't think he's yet in his prime. He's only like 24, I think, about 24 years old. So still a couple years away from his mathematical prime at least. So yeah, and he did really, really well in FIBA ball this year too. And number 1, we got Luka Doncic, because like I said, Curry is shooting guard, so he can't be number 1 here. But yeah, I don't really got to say much. We all know Luka is amazing. Luka's a triple double machine. He's already shown that this season in his first 3 games that have happened since me recording this video. Not that I'm not counting those games into these rankings, but I mean those games just they'll justify having Luka at 1 very easily. So yeah, that's what I got. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back. I will be posting shooting guard through center rankings as well later this week, and I'll be ranking the bench players, and I'll have a top 100 ranking after all of those videos as well. And don't miss out on our weekly power rankings videos as well for NBA and NFL. So just got a lot of content coming up for the next week or so on this channel.